Caps Face-Off Live, presented by Geico.
Happy Friday! We're 1 hour out from puck drop as the Washington Capitals arrived at Capital One Arena, looking to extend their point streak to 14 with a win tonight over the Montreal Canadiens. Nice fist bump from TJ Oshie and a little fan reaction. Same girl, same. As we welcome you in to Caps Face-Off Live, presented by Geico. I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Courtney Lachlan and Grant Paulson. How are we doing, you guys? Caps are just turning and burning. How about that? Nice game Wednesday night. We saw a little more from this third line, which was nice to see. A little different change from Stevenson, Eller, and Panik. How about
Richard
that?
Panik finally had the game we've been waiting for.
Yep. Yeah.
He got 6 shots on net, had 4 in the first period. He had 7 all season coming into the game. You've been waiting for him to look like an $11 million player, and I thought he did. Great sign, because they need something from the third line. They've been getting nothing.
And there is no one better in the NHL right now, because they're getting those games from everybody, no matter what kind of gets thrown their way, whether it's the third line, whether it's goaltending, whether it's the penalty kill, whether it's the power play. Something or someone is stepping up, which is why the Washington Capitals are the best team in the league.
I'm excited for tonight. We got 2 of the 4 best teams in the Eastern Conference. Montreal, 4th seed as of right now, 2nd in the Atlantic. So we've been talking about tests for this team. Seems like another one every couple of days. They're playing quality opponents. Another one tonight.
We also have a lineup change quickly I want to mention with Carl Hagelin and Nick Dowd out. Tyler Lewington gets called up for tonight's game, Courtney.
Yeah, and I think that all came down to the Caps were at the cap hit, and he was one of the only players that could fit into that for the Caps to call up that would be suitable. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. They're going to have 11 forwards, 7D now. Look, one of the most exciting things as a defenseman is when you can say, hey, I want to play forward. So I wouldn't be surprised. It's a lot easier for a defenseman to slot into a forward spot as a forward is for D, but the Caps have a lot of depth. I'm not really worried with 11 forwards and 7D.
Some more physically taxing game up front for some of the forwards. It's also a little bit more daunting game for the coaches on the bench as they try to keep everyone squared away and don't have anybody on the ice for too long.
Caps looking to extend this point streak. When we come back, we're looking at the biggest moments from this point streak, and the guys who made it happen, if you missed it, no worries. We've got you covered with the biggest moments when we come back with more Caps Face-Off Live.
Kuznetsov gliding to his backhand. He scores! Another one here. Bang, bang, score! Nicholas Backstrom, no mistake. Backstrom, topside Carlson. Score!
The Nats are loving it. The fans are loving it.
Watching here, Ovechkin fires and scores. In and out of the net in a heartbeat. Eller continues the thrust. Nice look. Wilson, he scores! Tom Wilson for some insurance. Centering pass to the goal mouth, deflected, score!
And what a blast that was. You can just feel like Vancouver's now on their heels.
And the Washington Capitals win.
I don't think the guys on the bench realize that they just won this.
Screen developing. Ovechkin fires! He scores! Count it! For the captain, a spectacular road trip. Turns the corner, backside score! Brendan Leipsic. It has been a nightmarish first 11 minutes for the Sabres defense. Now it's a breakaway bid in solo, forehand, stop, rebound, score! Jacob Vrana, throw the hats. Right off the jump. Black. Slow and hope he went to the splits. A marvelous save, 10 seconds into OT. Caps go the other way. John Carlson cross range. Action-packed. Right to the finish. Wilson wins it for Washington. Centering pass right up the gut. Siegenthaler. Score! Jonas Siegenthaler's first NHL marker.
Dawn Couturier, third. Flyers. Shooter. He misses the net. Capitals win the game 2-1. Now 11-0-2 over their last 13 games.
Well, Welcome back to Caps Face-Off Live, presented by Geico. Jordan Giorgio, Grant Paulson, and Courtney Lachlan here for your pre-game coverage. You guys, the Caps have yet to lose a game in regulation since October 14th. If you haven't checked the calendar today, don't worry, it happens. It is November 15th. So it has been a full month since they have lost a game in regulation. This team is putting up a fight in order to extend this point streak. It's incredible what we just watched.
Well, yeah, it is. And I think what's amazing is the versatility that they've shown in winning these games, the multitude of ways that they've ended up advancing with a W. They've done it on the power play, dominant nights. They've done it with the penalty kill on special teams. They've done it by scoring 3 goals in the first 5 minutes. They've done it by coming back from down 3 goals to go to overtime with huge third-period rallies. They've done it on nights where their first line carried them and on nights where their first line was non-existent. The heroes have changed, the storylines have undulated, but every time they play, they get a point and they at least go to overtime. It really has been an amazing run.
Courtney, Caps are red hot with basically an undefeated month against really good teams. And good news is that it looks like the level of competition is going down as we continue on this.
Yeah, and they've had an impressive run to kind of gear them up for that. Half of the games that they've played have been versus playoff teams. I like the way that the Caps are playing their game. I think they still have some room for improvement. But Grant, you were talking about how they're so resilient and how they've won in different ways. They also have won on the road, which I think is really important to mention. Their six of their 13 games have been played on the road. So they're just finding different ways to win. And I like their schedule coming up. They have a rhythm. They have a lot of games, a couple one-game road trips, and then they go on the road for another long road trip out in California. I think that this schedule did them some favors in terms of getting their games in order. I think there might have been one game where the Caps maybe underestimated their opponent, and that was against the Arizona Coyotes. So other than that, I think that the schedule has actually worked oddly enough in the Caps' favor.
Which is crazy to think about. I think it's an intuitive point. Looking at the board we just saw, though, and I thought it was a great graphic put together by our crew because we've got 24 games to watch still where they are going to be playing against the worst teams in the National Hockey League. So you look at these 9 teams right now. These are some of the dregs of the sport. Now, you play against the Devils right now or Columbus, and they have 4 games against those teams, 8 combined. You should, out of a possible 16, 8 points there, or 16 in this graphic between the 4 worst teams, that's 12, 13 points if you handle your business. They should be able to put this thing on cruise control early. Look at it. They've played 20 games already. I'm not great at math, but 62 remaining, 24 of them against that schedule. You're right. Playing this tough schedule prepared them well, but it also has put a lot of hay in the barn. And you got to handle your business against bad teams, but they've set themselves up for a tremendous season and a potentially historic regular season.
But those are sometimes the hardest games, right? Again, a couple games versus the Devils, and we saw the way that the Caps played against the Coyotes. Not exactly my favorite because it was a team that I think they underestimated, and it is hard to get up and play against these low-level teams. So I do like the way that the Caps have started off the season against playing against better opponents. I just hope that that can propel them because, look, it's human nature. Who wants to play against the Devils on a Tuesday night? Nobody. But the Caps need to make sure that they bring that game with them to this next stretch of the schedule.
Absolutely. It's now time for our Caps mailbag, where each and every game day you can submit your questions for us to answer using the NBCS Capitals Twitter account. So let's get to our question of the night. Which game from the Caps' 13-game point streak stands out to you most? I love that we have some options. Can't forget Vrana's hat-trick game, or the big comeback out in Vancouver. But Grant, who are you going with?
Thought about this one here, the overtime win over the Panthers. But I gotta say, mine, I don't know how many people would have picked this one because it almost, you look back over them, it blends in a little bit. I'm going with a 5-2 win over the Vegas Golden Knights. There are a couple of reasons I really liked this game. Number one, it was a tremendous start. You hadn't even gotten into your seat at Capital One Arena yet. That first popcorn kernel hadn't touched your tongue. And they've already scored a goal in the first minute of the game. Beautiful. They ended up taking a 2-0 lead and winning 5-2 on a pair of Nicholas Backstrom goals. As a guy who's got a soft spot for Backy, who's always thinking about other people and being so supportive, to see him score twice in a period back-to-back, including an empty netter, he deserves a little bit of love every now and then. He deserves a goal where there's no goaltender to stop the puck. So 5-2 against the team that you beat in the Stanley Cup final, and I'll come first circle and kind of end here. Anytime they beat Vegas, the nostalgia comes flooding back for me. I'm right back at Capital One Arena at the watch party for Game 5. I'll forever think about the Stanley Cup when I see the Vegas Golden Knights. So to see them celebrating that night, Kuz scoring in the opening minute and doing the bird, yes, please.
Always.
I'm going to go with another game that the Caps scored a lot in the opening minute, and that is the 6-1 win versus the Buffalo Sabres. That was back early November. I love this game because if you listen to any radio station, any NHL pundit, any analyst, they all said this game is a must-watch because both teams were coming into the game with 9 wins. Buffalo, one of the favorites to make it to the playoffs and to win the Stanley Cup, and they got absolutely pummeled. The Caps scored 4 goals in the first 11 minutes. They completely shut this team down. They shut down Eichel, and since then, the Sabres have lost 5 straight games. So they kind of set this team into a tailspin, and I just like they rose to the occasion. Everybody was talking about this game, how it was going to be a good litmus test, and the Caps proved to everybody.
Moving on, you guys, to a division outlook. The Penguins, for over the past few years, have been a team that have dealt with slow starts and injuries to start the season, but somehow make it to the playoffs. But this season, they will be without one of their stars in Sidney Crosby, who was out for at least 6 weeks. Grant, what does this do to their ability to compete in the East?
Well, it devastates them. I mean, they've been able to take all these punches to the face like love taps as they've lost some kind of table dressing key pieces, but they've had their core intact. They've had guys like Crosby who can keep them afloat. He's everything to them. I mean, this is the equivalent of the Caps being without, I wouldn't even necessarily say Ovechkin, although frankly I believe that without Alex Ovechkin, the Caps from a goal-scoring standpoint would obviously fall off. But maybe a Backstrom or a Kuznetsov, you know, Backy because he plays that whole 200-foot game. You got a center who makes everyone around him better. I think not having Crosby is a death blow to them for the next 6 weeks. Now, if they can play decent enough hockey to still kind of hang around, they might be able to sneak into the postseason. But it is a huge blow. I think of their whole year, Jordan, so far. It's like some scene out of a movie where, like, some guy, like, his arm's hurt. And he's like, okay, I'll fight you anyway. And his other arm's hurt. And he's like, I'll do it with no arms. And then, like, he's on one leg because he loses his other leg. That's the Penguins right now. And finally, this is the one where they just keel over and die, I think.
I hope you're right. I don't think you are, only because I think the Pittsburgh Penguins are a resilient bunch. They have some
resilient?
Cups. I think they're really resilient. They still have the same core. They have young guys stepping up that we don't even know the names of. When
That's
Malkin
a problem
was out,
for them.
but they're still getting the job done. Malkin, not the same as Crosby, totally understand. So yes, Crosby being out hurts them, but when Malkin was out, still a big time player, one of the best players in the National Hockey League. They still won 7 of their 11 games. They had Hornquist out, Letang has been out. They have been faced with a ton of injuries, and they still got a pretty good record. They're still a pretty good team.
I agree with you, but I believe 87 is the glue that allowed all that to happen.
Yes, but I still think they have that core there, and they still are a very resilient team. I don't know if it's going to be their demise. I don't think they're just going to – I think they're going to keep fighting. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think just because Crosby isn't there means that this team is just going to be standing
Crawl
on one
into
leg.
the position.
I don't think so. I'd like to think that.
And it's not like they're the worst team in the East. All they've got to do is basically stay within striking distance because you will get him back, and then we see this all the time. You rip off maybe 10 wins in 14, or you get points in 12 out of 13, and you get into the playoffs. It's possible.
Right.
I worry so much less about them, though, without Crosby on the ice.
We'll talk more about the East in just a moment. I agree with you, too. You don't want to underestimate this team. Quick break for us, but when we come back, we're talking to the players only, and Alan May, Craig Lachlan, and a special guest joins us who knows the Eastern Conference very well. We'll talk about the teams and where they stack up in the East when we return. Welcome back to Caps Faceoff Live. It's now time for Players Only. It's an honor to welcome to the show Mike Johnson, who played 11 years in the league, scoring 129 goals. He is now an analyst for TSN covering the Canadiens. He joins us now alongside Alan May and Craig Lachlan. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, we are a quarter of the way through the season. Between the three of you, you have a pretty good idea of what the Eastern Conference looks like thus far. We believe the Caps are playing the best hockey in the East currently, but what other teams have impressed you so far? Craig, take it away.
All right, Jordan. Yeah, well, I'm a hometown boy. Washington has impressed me, Johnny. Come on.
Well, listen,
like, you're around the league in every capacity. Yes. Who has impressed you in the East?
Well, usually I'd say you're being a homer, but you're not.
No.
When you say it's Washington. Washington has been by far the best team in the East. But I must say, The Islanders, who I did not think
Big
would be able to
surprise.
replicate what they did last year, not with that system, not with those numbers, have done the exact same thing. Even though they lost Robin Lehner, they're bringing up Varlamov. They haven't really replaced any players in their team, but they got Barry Trotz. You know him well from here.
Yep.
How great a job he's done getting that team to buy into playing defensively. I'm surprised they've been as good as they have.
Can
but
they
probably
keep it going?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so last year, but they did. So, I mean, I don't know why I would think it wouldn't be the case this year. Those guys, and I think Boston, once they get a little healthier, get a little depth production, they scare you that it feels like their best will be very, very good.
Alan, are you a homer too?
Well, of course, I think the Washington Capitals have been great, and they haven't even been playing at the best of their abilities. You look at the other teams that you both talked about. New York Islanders, I'm with Mike. I'm absolutely shocked that they're able to carry over from last year, but I'm not surprised because Barry Trotz and Lane Lambert, the entire coaching staff there, has a way of getting players to buy in, the honesty. But the team we're playing tonight, the Capitals are playing the Montreal Canadiens. I think what they've done there, Claude Julien has probably added to his arsenal of coaching ability. We've always seen him be so uber defensive, but now this team is lightning fast. They're using their players' ability, so he's coaching towards the team that he has. They're still great defensively. I like what they do there. I actually really like their 6 defensemen that they have in the lineup tonight. Their ability to skate, move the puck around, get it up and down the ice. So Montreal's really impressed me. I look at the Carolina Hurricanes. I thought they would be dominating the Eastern Conference right now. They're still a work in progress. Maybe they have a little bit of a hangover from last year, but to me, the Boston Bruins, when you go through all of these teams, the Boston Bruins are the one that continue to wow me. Every time I watch them play, the way they move the puck around, the speed at which they play the game, excellent goaltending, their defense, regardless of who's in the lineup for them, they're absolutely and totally in sync. And then you watch their top line, their poetry in motion every single night, Craig.
And you can't sleep on Tampa. I know they haven't started well. I know we're talking about the 20-game mark, but I don't know what happened in Sweden, but they clearly liked it. They played very well there, came back and put a 9 spot on the Rangers. You know more is in
Can
Tampa.
they play as hard as, say, the Caps if they meet them in the playoffs?
Absolutely they can. I mean, I think last year they went out in a sweep to Columbus after a record-setting year.
Correct.
But that's something that we would know here in Washington quite well. Great regular seasons and coming up a little bit short in the playoffs.
Why do you have to mention that?
Well, because you guys won now, so I can talk all about it, so it's not a big deal anymore.
All right.
But I think their goaltender had a bad 10 days, the worst possible time. Kucherov was suspended, and they got a little bit off their game against a bad matchup. They're a different kind of team than Washington, but they'll play hard, and they can absolutely take the same team they have right now and win a Stanley Cup. Just because they didn't do it last year, as we know here in Washington, doesn't mean you can't do it, period. You just haven't done it yet.
Okay, disappointing teams in the Eastern Conference, or disappointing players, teams, you name it.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be a homer. I'm from Toronto. Toronto, for all the talk, for all the hype, this is the year, this and next, this is where this team is built. They got all their guys signed those monster contracts. They brought in Tycee Berry on a discount, and they've been just kind of meh.
Yeah, we played them, and we handled them very well.
They're not in the playoffs right now. When Freddie Anderson is great, they keep pucks out of their net, but the defensive zone structure is not what it needs to be to compete with the best teams. Yeah, they can score. They're still one of the best teams in the league at putting the pucks in the net, but they're still one of the worst at keeping it out. I think a lot of people thought that they would be better and playing differently than they have this year. And so I think for the Maple Leafs and their fans, which there are a lot of, there's a little angst right now because it's not gone well so far.
Disappointment, Alan?
Well, I'm looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs. I thought they'd be a lot better and further along than they are. But the biggest thing there is I think they've created with their contract problems too much discussion outside of the team, which affects the players on the ice. So who's getting dropped to get all the contract dollars back into place. But to me, absolutely 100%, the New Jersey Devils being at the bottom of the barrel, I'm in shock from the additions they made to their roster. I thought they'd be a lot better team, harder to play against, speedier, having everyone back healthy, to play gritty like they were a few years ago, having Miles Wood back in the lineup every night. PK Subban was supposed to be a huge help for them. It hasn't worked out, and I look at them, and I do not know what style of play of hockey they're going to play every night. I think they're absolutely 100% the biggest disappointment in the National Hockey League this season.
MVP of the league at the quarter pole.
Now, again, if I wanted to cater to the hometown crowd here, I'd probably say John Carlson because he's having a historic year, but I'm not. Leon Draisaitl in Edmonton. I'm not going to say Connor. Right now,
Draisaitl above Connor.
Right now, he plays more minutes. He's got more goals. He's got more points. Their team is in first. The big knock on McDavid and Draisaitl, you can't consider them for League of Wars because their team's no good. Well, their team's in first right now, so I have to give it to Leon. He has been spectacular, and you see McDavid have a massive night, 6 points the other night.
Awesome.
Leon quietly goes, grabs 5 himself like it's not a big deal. So I would say
That's like
Leon,
a Mayday night.
Yeah, just another 5-pointer, Maisie, whatever, not a big deal.
A 5-minute major, but I'm a hometown guy, and I'm going to go the other way, Mike. I'm going to go with Connor McDavid as the league MVP at this point to me. His game is improved again, but it's a two-way game. The details of the Dave Tippett style of coaching have really helped these guys out. They don't go anywhere if McDavid's not doing what he's doing. I love Draisaitl. This guy is a way better skater than he is supposed to be, because I remember when he was drafted, the knock on him was he had heavy boots, but I look at him now. He can skate by anyone in the National Hockey League. He scores goal, but he's not going to do it without Connor McDavid moving him the puck and getting it to him in all different areas. I'm going to go with Connor McDavid as the MVP right now.
And yet, Mayday, I would say Draisaitl more primary assists than McDavid and more goals.
I'm going Draisaitl. I'm with you.
I can
Jordan,
make a case.
I'm with him this time.
Smart guy.
Thanks for joining us and putting up with these two. I know they're a handful.
Always listen.
Hey, can someone fix my chair? This is unbelievable.
Anytime I get the 2 goals I scored against Washington in my life on air, I'm a happy camper. I'm gonna have a great night.
Thank you guys so much. It's now time for our score prediction presented by Volkswagen. But before we get into that, I've got to ask you, keys for the Caps tonight up against the Canadiens.
I'm going to go with their size and power needs to outwork the Canadian speed. They're a fast team. They're one of the smallest teams, though, in the NHL, right with Nashville, so they're not very big. The Caps are best when they're physical, when they're in a hard on the forecheck, so size and physicality over speed.
I want a clean game in front of Ilya Samsonov. I want to give him a chance to bounce back and look like a starting goaltender again.
Score predictions and players to watch quickly.
I'm going to go 4-2. Caps, and my player to watch is Alex Ovechkin, who absolutely lights up the Montreal Canadiens, 53 points in 48 games.
Ovi's my guy tonight, too. 3-1 Caps. He's due for a night.
Wow, you guys are way out on the limb with Ovi. 3-2 Caps, a goal from Tom Wilson.
Sounds good. Puck drop is 30 minutes out at Capital One Arena. Caps get set to host the Montreal Canadiens. Caps pregame live coming up next.